Okay, it says we're live, so I'm going to take its word for it, and I'm going to believe that we are live. It's another Saturday, June 5th, 2021, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I look forward to being back here with you guys another week. We missed you last week. I missed you last week. We kind of took the weekend off for remembrance of Memorial Day. I know a lot of families get together that weekend, and there's a lot of different emotions that go through. So kind of honoring that. Yep, Jim, we are live. I do appreciate you being here on time. Good morning, Vita. Good morning, everybody, actually in advance as you all kind of trickle in. Today's a good one. It's a brand new talk. I created it last night. I call it Burning the Midnight Oil. And I do my best thinking and creating when in the middle of the night. And today is going to be a good one. So for those of you who have been following the family education and support groups and lectures for the past, a year and a few months now that we've been doing this every weekend. Today's going to be new content. Hopefully it's going to help you. And so let me give a quick background information about myself for anybody that's new or is going to be watching this on recording. And so my name is Param. I am one of the partners at Buckeye Recovery Network. I have a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. I'm a licensed advanced alcohol and drug counselor. And I also coach high school basketball. That's a kind of a fun fact about me. And I'm also in the recovery process myself. So June 13th of 2008 is my sobriety date. I haven't had a drink or a drug since that date. And God willing, there's no freebies, so there's no advances in recovery. So next Sunday, if things go as planned and I'm able to not pick up a drink, not pick up a drug, and continue doing what I've been doing for the past 12 years and 11 months and 3 weeks, I should be hopefully taking 13 years clean and sober. But one day at a time. Even today, all these years later, it's one day at a time because that's the only thing that we got guaranteed is what's going on right now. So for those of you who are new watching this, these family education and support groups are available and accessible to anybody who wants to join, participate, watch. I'm going to be a teenager, Jim. Yeah, I never thought of that. It's actually the first person that's reminded me that 13 is going to be a teenager. To be a teenager again, right, Jim? So the goal of these talks is to be able to provide some solid information on addictions, mental health, the recovery process, communication, rebuilding trust, self-care, and honestly, a little bit of anything and everything in between. There is also a link that I post, which I'll show you what I mean by that in the comment section. That link allows you to be able to click on it, and you can actually join the studio here with me. So if you don't want to be on with your video, you could just put your audio on and it'll be a split screen. You and I can have a conversation. You can ask questions, get feedback. I will always do my best. And it's super interactive. You know, my goal is for this to be an actual resource for you to help you in your recovery. So all that being said, today, and all my talks are dedicated to the possibility of human and family transformation. So I believe that all human beings, that all families can transform who they are, how they live, what they do, how they go about life in any given moment that they choose to. Like we can all have a different Saturday than we thought we were going to have when we woke up. You can have a different week next week than you thought you were going to have. A different week next week than last week. Next month than last month. Next year than last year. That's the beauty of being a human. We're not trees. We just don't stay in the same spot. We can move. We can evolve. We can make progress. And that's why I do this every week. And by the way, I did the same talk with a different flavor for our program participants this morning at 9 a.m. I had the same level of motivation and enthusiasm. And for some of the staff members that are watching this, I'm doing this a little bit more on a professional route on Tuesday mornings, personal development. So today's going to be geared towards families. So you guys will hear both sides of the conversation. So I have the talk's all about problems. We're going to talk about problems today. You're like, oh God, I already have enough problems. I don't want to talk about problems. But the goal of this talk is to help you reframe the way you think and you go about and you deal with and you manage and you resolve your problems, right? We all have them anyways. So we might as well level up, have the right armor, the right perspective, the right attitude to be able to manage our problems. Yeah, good morning, everyone. I know there's a bunch of people that said good morning. Good morning collectively to y'all. So I found this that I really like. And again, I made this at 2 o'clock in the morning last night. So if some of it seems off, it's okay. But here we go. It says there's 3 kinds of people in our society. Number 1, those who can't see or refuse to see the problems. So some people just, ignorance is bliss. It's not happening to me. It's not happening to anyone. We just refuse to see the problem. Type number 2, those who see the problem, and because they didn't personally create them, they are content to blame someone else for it. So the second type of people, they see problems out there. They see problems inside. They see problems in their home and in society. But because they weren't the ones that created them, they take no fault, no blame for them, and they're not even responsible for doing anything about it. And they're okay living that way, right? But there's a third type of person who I strive to be like, and my goal is to empower you to be like that, because if there's enough of these people in the world, oh my gosh, we could do anything. The third type is those who see the problem, and though they didn't create them themselves, they're willing to assume responsibility for solving them, right? So there are problems all around us, and hey, we don't have a part in all of them. But am I willing to take responsibility to do my part to help resolve that problem? Here's a perfect example. I live in this apartment complex, and the other day I was walking by just to go to my car, and I noticed a candy wrapper trash on the ground. I walked by it, and I was like, oh shit, there's a piece of candy trash on the ground. And I went to my car, made no mind of it. The next day, I went to my car, and I saw the same candy wrapper, piece of trash on the ground. And I said, man, I can't believe nobody's picked this up. It's been here for over 24 hours now. That's so ridiculous. And I went to my car. But in that moment, I sat in my car and I said, what the hell's going on? Like, what's going on with me? Because that was really odd of me to just walk by that and just say, hey, how come nobody's picked this up? So I went to the store and I came back. And right when I walked by the candy wrapper, I picked up the candy wrapper trash. I never put it there. Nobody picked it up. I grabbed it and I went to the trash can and I threw it away. And I know that sounds like a really simple and stupid analogy, but that candy wrapper trash could be so many different things in life. And sometimes just taking responsibility for doing something that maybe someone else should have done but didn't do is a very, very big step in collectively healing a lot of the problems that we have, right? So now you're here for recovery. You're not here to learn about picking up candy trash. You're here because someone in your life, could be yourself, but someone in your life is experiencing addictions. And addiction is definitely one of those things that we call a problem, right? Because it's so, first of all, there's a lethality connected to it. It's life or death often. Second of all, there's a lot of consequences that are secondary to addictions, right? When there's an addiction problem going on, there is also health problems, psychological, emotional, spiritual, physical, vocational, educational, societal. There's a lot of problems that go with it. So I have a lot of compassion for you watching this if you are going through those problems, yourself personally. But here are my 7 observations of problems in general, and we'll relate these back to the recovery process. And again, if anybody wants to talk on any topic related to this, you are welcome to log on to this talk. Click the link in the comment section, pop on, we'll have a conversation. I'll get right back to my conversation about problems because it'll teach us something. Problems, they're always going to be there. They're not going to go away. So is this talk. So number 1, remember this, that problems are everywhere. Everyone has them. Okay. I know that sounds basic, but when people are going through problems themselves, they start to think that their problems are unique to themselves. People think that the problem that they're experiencing is only something they are experiencing. However, when you zoom out and gain some perspective, all human beings, everyone watching this right now, everybody that's not watching this right now, everybody that's going through their day-to-day through this weekend is experiencing some type of problems in their life. And I'll tell you this, now when we get into the recovery process, if you're going through the recovery process and you aren't aggravated and you aren't frustrated and you aren't pushed to the limit because of some problems in your life, then you're not really going through the recovery process. Like, I'm going to say that again. If you're going through the recovery process as a family member and it's not aggravating the hell out of you in the beginning, it's not frightening, it's not scary, it's not uncomfortable, it's not challenging you, then you're really not going through the recovery process. Because the problems in early recovery for family members, the problems that are related to trust, the problems that are related to communication, the problems that are related to resentment, the problems that are related to probably finances, the problems that are related to the fear of the unknown, those are big problems, right? There's a solution to all of them, but they're big problems. And when you face those problems, it's going to hurt. I'm not going to sit here as a professional, as a therapist, as a counselor, as someone that's invested in the recovery world and tell you early recovery is easy. If somebody ever tells you that, man, they're not telling you the whole truth. It's something that you got to embrace coming when you want to recover as a family unit. It's going to be rocky at first. It's going to be turbulent at first, and that's okay. So just remember that if you're not aggravated, if you're not annoyed, if you're not peeved, you're probably not doing it right. And it's okay. You want to experience those feelings because after every breakdown, there is always a breakthrough. After every breakdown in life, there's always a breakthrough. So the whole talk of this is to really embrace these problems that we have, that you're experiencing right now. The next one says, problems don't disappear if they are ignored. Okay. So here's a good quote. It says, the measure of success is not whether you have a tough problem to deal with, but whether it is the same problem that you had last year. So family members, my question to you is this. Look at the problems that you have with your loved one or with addiction or with the recovery process. Are you experiencing or re-experiencing the same problems that you had last year, yesterday, yesteryear, yesterdecade? If the answer is yes, it's less to do with the problem, okay? Less to do with the problem and more to do with how you are going about solving the problem, okay? And they don't go away if they're ignored. And yes, absolutely, Dan, I always appreciate your feedback, but the problems related to shame and embarrassment, that is definitely at first feels universal. It feels unique because when a family member is going through, a loved one going through the addiction process, there's a lot of shame. Like the family member feels bad, right? Like they feel bad as whatever responsibility that they take on in that dynamic. But then they're always embarrassed because embarrassment's tied to some outside connection, to some outside result. And that when the result doesn't match the expectation, there's like a sense of embarrassment to it. However, when you join these groups the way you have been and you've connected with all the family members watching this, and you guys, you see the family members that I bring up here and you see, oh my gosh, he, she, they're saying what I experienced. And then all of a sudden the problem that was so unique becomes something that's almost universal within family members. So absolutely. Thank you for putting problems in the quotation mark, because problems, my friends, are definitely subjective. Problems are definitely a perspective thing. And and some people, they just ignore their problems hoping they go away. That's a successful technique. Ask anybody that's ever avoided the IRS. Anybody that's ever avoided a toothache, anybody that's ever avoided facing or dealing something that they've needed to do, avoidance doesn't work, right? So when dealing with recovery, you can't just avoid the problem. And by the way, a lot of family members, before your loved one got to the point of addiction, before they got to the point of like heavy addiction, there was a lot of time that you just turned your face to some of the behaviors they were doing, whether it was denial, whether it was not wanting to get your reality confirmed of like what you thought it was, and you just avoided it thinking that it was going to get better, swept it under the rug, right? And eventually it comes back. So the third observation that I have about problems is we tend to lose a correct perspective of problems when they are our own, right? So all human beings, whether you're in recovery or not, we lose the correct perspective of a problem when that problem happens to be ours. So this is the old adamant of minor versus major. So what's a minor problem when it's yours? What's a major problem when it's mine, right? It's kind of like, what's a minor surgery when surgery is happening on you? What's a major surgery when surgery is happening on me? So we lose perspective. And once we lose perspective, we've lost all control. Once we lose perspective, we lose all control of getting into the solution of the problem, right? So the next one that I have here to build on that perspective talk, because this becomes really important. And some of this stuff I know I'm going through kind of quickly. Just make a note of where you heard this in the talk and go back to it and just listen to it again, because there's a lot of value in this, and so this one is probably my favorite slide of this whole thing. And it says, our perspective of the problem and not the problem itself determines our success or failure. So it has nothing to do with the problem. Our perspective of the problem and not the problem itself determines our success or our failure. So I'm going to go through a few things that I consider the right perspective and a few things that I consider the wrong perspective. Number one, right perspective. Problems are solvable. Wrong perspective. My problems are not solvable, unsolvable. Right perspective. My problems are temporary. Wrong perspective. My problems are permanent. Right perspective. Problems make us better. Wrong perspective. Problems make us bitter. Right perspective. Problems challenge us. Wrong perspective, problems control us. Right perspective, problems stretch us. They help us grow, evolve, and move forward in life. Wrong perspective, problems stop us. They stop our growth. They stop our forward progress. So whatever problem you're going through in life, do you have the right perspective or do you have the wrong perspective? And some of you, when you look back into your own relationship with addictions and recovery of your loved one, or even yourself. I know there's a few people watching this that themselves were the ones going through addiction. You can see how you had the wrong perspective and you were getting the undesirable outcome you wanted. The wrong perspective, you thought the problem was unsolvable, that it was permanent. It wasn't going to go away. I wish family members knew how many human beings who struggle with addictions and drug dependency at some point in the depths of their addiction say, this is who I am. I'm a hopeless junkie. I'm a hopeless drug addict. I'm a hopeless alcoholic. I'm going to die this way, right? They make a permanent choice of their mindset over something that's temporary. How many people, problems made them bitter? Resentment, anger, frustration. People stop wanting to be around you, right? You stop wanting to be around yourself. That whole feeling of being bitter, it's such a draining way to live life, to walk through life bitter. It's draining on self, vitality, it's draining on others. Problems control us. How many of you felt controlled by the addiction of your loved one? It was all because of the wrong perspective. And problems stopped you. It stopped you from doing anything and everything for yourself. Right? Your forward progress stopped the day that the problem of your loved one's addiction, you had the wrong perspective on it. And there's actually someone with, Jim. So as a lot of you guys know, Jim is one of our valued counselors, clinicians at Buckeye Recovery Network. He's also, I think Jim is 17 years, right? If you can confirm that, but I think he's 17 years clean and sober. And he said that the thought process of always going to be a junkie never helped change my life. So he had that life for us. So I wasn't just making that up. That the psychological, so 17 years. Yeah, the psychological mindset that human beings struggling with addictions, they say, hey, I'm just going to live and die as a junkie and this and that, is such a permanent mindset for something that's so temporary. Because here he is 17 years later, and he's definitely not the junkie that his mind told him he was going to be. So the right perspective with all that stuff, with your family recovery. So all the families watching this right now, the ones that are, doing the deal, doing the work, problems are solvable. Today you have a solution, right? You have a solution for your addiction of your loved one. And that starts with self-care, boundaries. It starts with doing your own work. That is your solution. The next one is problems are temporary. Everything in life is temporary. Everything in life is temporary. Problems make us better, not bitter. They make us better. Dude, problems are also known as opportunities. And I have a really nice slide here that's going to hopefully change your outlook on the word problems. Problems challenge us. Like, you know, it helped you face yourself and realize what you're actually made up of. It helped you tap into this thing called human resiliency. It helped you understand what adversity really feels like in the face of challenges. And it helped you stretch. So the next one that I have, this is really cool. So it says problems responded to correctly move us forward. Okay, problems responded to correctly move us forward. The word problem. So we all hear the word problem. Has anybody ever wondered, you know, what problem actually means? I'm not talking about the Webster's or Oxford dictionary. When you go look at the Latin root of the word problem, you break it down into pro, and it's a thing called balein. It's Ballein, probalein. And what probalein means, it actually means to move forward, to push forward. So the Latin root, the Greek word is the origin. The word problem means to move forward. How cool is that? So when responded to correctly, though, incorrectly, it actually has us move backward and regress. So problems never leave us the same. They either have us moving forward or moving backwards. And it was just something interesting that I found on that, because we usually, when we hear the word problem, there's always a negative connotation tied to it. Always. You can ask 10 people, hey, what's your thoughts of a problem? And they're going to say it's something that gets in the way. It's challenging. It's annoying. It's frustrating. It's nagging. When in definition, it actually means to move forward. You know, so the next one, it says the size of the person is more important than the size of the problem. You can easily determine the caliber of a person by how much opposition it takes to discourage them. So once you get into the recovery process, my friends, all the family members watching this, how much opposition can you take before you break? And some family members can take some family members can take a little bit more, and some family members can take a lot more, right? Wherever you are on that process, just be okay, first of all, with where you are. That's okay. Acknowledge it. Like, accept the fact that that's where you are. Second of all, there's this thing called emotional and distress tolerance. As human beings that are recovering, or family members that are recovering, we have to learn how to have emotional and distress tolerance, emotion regulation. If you can't do it on your own, when you get to that breaking point, you are responsible for asking for help. We're going to talk about that in a second. Reaching out and getting some reinforcements that will help you not break. If you know you're about to break because of a problem you're going through because of the addiction process, make sure you get enough people around you that even though you want to break, they support you underneath. Therefore, you can't break even if you wanted to. And that's how we get through problems. That's how we increase our size when it comes to something when we're fragile. So obstacles will appear as large or small, they appear large or small, whether you are large or small. You know, and I'm not talking about physical size. I'm talking about that grit, that mentality, that ability to kind of face them. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it. Really love your advice. They always tell us to caution from giving advice, you know, because it's usually you just want to make suggestions. So I'll take it as you really like the suggestions that I give in life. But the next one, the last observation I have about problems is this. When you make small plans, expect small problems. When you make big plans, expect big problems. Okay? And expect means anticipate. Just know they're coming. Don't be surprised by the fact that, oh my gosh, I have a problem in my life. So like I said, this morning, I was sitting down with our program participants. We had about maybe 12, 15 of them present. And I said, hey, some of you have moved thousands of miles from wherever you were. And you're in a recovery community right now. You're trying to change your life around. You've left anything and everything that's familiar to you. You've left your comfort. You're in a whole new place with all new experiences. You're making the biggest change you've ever made in your life. Those are some pretty big plans, man. Those are some pretty big plans. And here's the thing. I want you to know that with those big plans, you're going to face some big problems. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, you just moved across the country and you're going to be all right. The bigger the plans, the bigger the problems. The smaller the plans, the smaller the problems. The size of your problems will always be contingent on the size of your plans. And this isn't, by the way, just in the regular life. Go make some big plans and get into action. You know, down the line, it's like construction waiting to happen. There's going to be some problems you're going to have to overcome. And when you do, you move forward. So it's not a bad thing. But, people come into the recovery world, and I wish someone would just stop them the way I'm stopping you right now and share with you the way I'm sharing with you right now, that even though stopping drugs and alcohol for the individual and stopping drugs and alcohol within the family dynamics of a family is a very, very good start. And it takes away all the problems that are related to drugs and alcohol. It's only the beginning. Like, the recovery process is so expansive that once you stop the drugs and alcohol, the rest of it could begin. It's like the prerequisite. For some of you who have ever been to school or college classes, and there's a certain class you want to take. However, they force you to take a class prior to that class, which is known as the prerequisite. Stopping drugs and alcohol is the prerequisite for the recovery process. Now, if you really understand what I said there, people think stopping drugs and alcohol is the end game. It's the start game. I was telling the program participants this morning. Like, once you stop drugs and alcohol, people think their problems go away. No, their problems related to drugs and alcohol go away. At that point, they become equal. They're on the playing field with the other 8 billion people in the world that don't have addiction problems, right? Or the other, I don't know, they say 8 million in America have addiction problems, 24 million have alcohol problems. So that takes us to like 31 million. The United States is 350 million, right? So at that point, you're equal to 320 million people, same playing field. Let's go. And sometimes people need to hear this stuff, that our problems do not go away. Only our problems with drinking and drugging goes away when we get clean and sober. Same thing with the family. Like, just because your loved one stops using drugs and alcohol, your communication problem doesn't get better all of a sudden. It just doesn't. Your trust problem doesn't get better all of a sudden. Your emotion, your guilt, your shame, some of that stuff that people were talking about in here doesn't get better all of a sudden. The only thing that gets better is the fact that your loved one's not doing drugs and alcohol and you're not experiencing consequences because of their addiction in your life. That's it. Sorry to be the breaker of news, but I do believe that human beings respond better when they're told directly truths about recovery. Truths about recovery, because we all deserve that. And that's what makes the recovery process so beautiful, is because it is a hard journey. It's a difficult journey. If it was easy, everyone would do it. But the ones that do it look back and say it was the greatest thing they've ever done in their lives. And it's possible for anyone who actually chooses to do it. That's why I do this. Why would I be here every Saturday morning talking to you? Why would I care so much? Because I know that each one of you watching this has the ability to achieve recovery in your life. Every single one of you does. Nobody's hopeless, not in my eyes. Not anyone struggling with addictions, and no family member that struggled with addictions for a long time. If you've been battling this addiction thing in your family for 10 years and you just can't figure it out, you can start doing it today. Little talks like this. With most human beings that struggle with addictions, alcohol, drugs, and they all have sobriety dates, right? When you ask them what's special about your sobriety date, some people might have a date, maybe someone was born or like a special day of the year. But I'll tell you this, and you got to take my word for this, that most people, right, their sobriety date is just some random day. There was nothing special about it. It was a random Tuesday. It was a random Sunday. It was a random, there's nothing special about it. So for family members, the day that you begin your true recovery process, which is to find something that's been regained, to regain something that's been lost, stolen, or destroyed, which is that connection to yourself, doesn't have to be a special day. It doesn't have to be your child's sobriety date, because here's the thing, that may or may not stick. So if your recovery day and your child's sobriety day is the same, you're going all in on a bet that may or may not come true. You got to pick a date for yourself and hold that date and honor that date and stick to that date, irregardless of any other thing going on around you. And that's the day you start solving your own problems in life, right? Because your kid's the one that has to solve his addiction problem. You can help, put him strategically in places that would help, and you can set your boundaries and enforce those boundaries and make it more difficult for him to regress back and all that kind of stuff. That's wonderful. But solving their problem with addictions, you can't solve it. If you could have, you would have done it long before. Am I right? If you really could have solved the addiction problem, you probably would have done it long before you started watching this. I'll tell you that. And if you're trying to do it right now, take my word or the words of some of these family members that have been watching this. You're not going to be able to solve it. You can't solve that problem. It's something that people do on their own. But you can solve your own problems in life. And so now that I shared some observations on problems, I'm going to go ahead and give you some 6 R's. So I like to use acronyms, the 6 R's for problem solving. So everybody always wants to solve their problems. So let's go through some ways that you can go about doing that. The first R is rule your emotions. Okay. I did a little digging. I found a good statistic I want to share with you. It says people with emotional problems are 144% more likely to have an automobile accident than those who do not. Now listen to this stat. This is staggering. 1 out of every 5 victims of fatal accidents had a quarrel with someone within 6 hours before the accident. 1 out of 5, that's 20% of every fatal car accident. When they did a little research of the driver, they found out that within 6 hours of that fatal car accident, they got in an argument, a fight, something dysregulated their emotions, which 6 hours later led to, or up until 6 hours later, led into a fatal car accident. Now, first of all, that shows the power of emotions, right? Second of all, how many times have I shared with you that addiction is like a car accident? Like the process of addiction is like one big car accident. When we get in the recovery process, we step out and we look back at the wreckage and we say, oh my gosh, how did I survive that? How did I get through that? How did we get through that? Yet some people forget that and they jump right back in the car and go again. Right back in the car and they go again. Right back in the car and they go again. And every single time they lead to the same damn accidents when they lose the ability to rule their emotions, right? So hot heads and cold hearts have never solved anything. Hot heads and cold hearts have never solved anything. It's couldn't be more true. And hot heads, by the way, I've always shared this with you, that when your emotions get dysregulated, so you talk to your kid and they respond a certain way, or they get angry, or you're not, happy with some of the decisions they've made. What happens is you go quickly in your head and your emotions get dysregulated, because when it's your kid, remember, your kid, major problem, their kid, minor problem. We lose perspective when it's our own. When your emotions get dysregulated in life, your ability to make objective decisions based on truth and fact is out the door. I've yet to meet a family member when their kid's really, really, dysregulated, that's able to objectively look at the situation. Because what happens, they get triggered, right? And when you get triggered with your problems because your emotions are involved, you're not going to be able to solve them. So learning how to rule your emotions is huge. And some of you do a better job than others with it. And some of you don't do a good job. If you are a grown man or woman watching this right now, and you know that you struggle with managing your emotions and you are not doing something about it, or you're not doing enough about it to learn how to rule and manage your emotions, then I'm telling you this, you're going to continue having problems in your life as a result of your inability to manage your emotions. You're going to keep having emotional problems. It's a choice. You can choose that, by the way. You can say, you know what? I don't care. I don't mind. I'm an emotional mess. You know how many people I've talked to, they say they're an emotional mess and they're okay with it? How many people have said, I'm just a really emotional person and they're okay with it? When I'm telling you that 1 out of every 5 car accidents that's fatal, 6 hours before it, there was some emotional issue that happened to that person. So is life, man. Life's a metaphor. Life is like that whole car ride. How many other accidents do we get into because our emotions are dysregulated? Julian wrote a couple good comments there. So he wrote, resentments can lead to unfortunate events. Yes, but the second one, Julian, that I like is you actually explain what that means. I'm messing with Julian. He's one of our, he's actually a friend of mine too, but he's also one of our employees. He wrote, anger restricts your thinking and changes your response to an impulse rather than responding. So it's actually, Julian, if I can add that to it. So anger restricts your thinking and changes your response to an impulse rather than responding. Anger actually makes us react rather than respond. So let me tell you the difference between reacting and responding since we're here right now. Reacting is this, is something happens to me, it causes an emotional disturbance, it causes my emotions to get dysregulated, and immediately I react. I do something, I say something, usually something that later on I look back and say, I wish I didn't do that, right? Responding is something happens to me, I get emotionally dysregulated, my emotions go up and down, and instead of doing something immediately, I pause. So you pause when you're agitated or doubtful. You pause when you're angry. I maybe take a step back. Could be a few minutes, could be a few hours, could be a few days. And I come back with an appropriate response after my emotions have come down. That's the difference between reacting and responding. A lot of people, when they're triggered, they react instead of respond. So I know that's what you meant, Julian, and I thank you for your feedback, bro. It's much appreciated and good job. So the next one that I have here, there's 6 R's. That was the first one, is to remember what others can do when you actually ask for help, right? So what is not expressed does not exist. I've been saying this. I learned this from this counselor named Siamak Afshar. When I say this counselor, he was my counselor, the person who motivated and inspired me to become a licensed clinician, substance abuse counselor. It's a person that helped me be okay with myself when I was really struggling with addictions. He helped me with my guilt and shame and acceptance and all that kind of stuff. He's my why of why I'm who I am. But he said, what's not expressed does not exist. So he used to say, when love and gratitude that isn't expressed doesn't exist. Well, so are problems. Problems that aren't expressed do not exist. If you're going through something in your life, nobody in this world knows you're going through it unless you open your mouth and say something, unless you reach your hand out and ask for help. You want to know why? Because these other people in this world, believe it or not, they're selfish and self-centered. Even Param, the guy that you guys look up to and say, hey, this guy spends every Saturday with us. He's giving, he's caring, he spends his time, he spends his energy, he tries to teach us something. When I get off this talk every Saturday without fail, guess what I do? I go live my own life. I do what I need to do. I focus on the things I need to focus about. I focus on my world. And in that moment, guess whose world I can't think about simultaneously? Yours. And everyone else is that same way. So if you're going through a problem, what you have to do is ask for help. I'm not saying ask Param for help. Ask your support people for help. Ask your support network of human beings. Ask your friends, your families. Reach out and ask for help. This is something that people who struggle with addiction struggle with. And if they struggle with it, so do their families. Right? And if you struggle with it, so do others. Society does. We all suck at asking for help because we're told if you ask for help, that means you're weak. No, it doesn't. If you ask for help, that means you're smart. If you ask for help, that means you understand that you can't do this on your own. If you ask for help, that means you understand your own limitations. Right? So problems become smaller when we face them with help and support. They become smaller. It's all a perspective thing. The next one that I have is refuse to give up. Oh, man. How many times have I seen people just give up? The moment you say, I give up, someone else is seeing the situation and saying, what a great opportunity. This happens in sober living all the time, my friends. People get up and they say, you know what? This isn't for me. I don't want to be here. I'm not getting what I want out of this. This is BS. I want to go live my life. I'm fine now. And they leave the house in a huff and a puff, right? They make this big exit as if like, oh my God, our life is going to change that you just decided to leave. In 12 12 minutes later, 12 hours later, 24 hours later, someone else comes in that house off a really, really bad relapse, almost died, struggling, homeless, family's boundaries, no one's talking to him or her. And they come in and they get on their knees, and I've seen this before, emotional, and they're grateful that they have a roof over their head, grateful that they are allowed to be somewhere, grateful they can communicate with people that actually give a shit about them, grateful that they have another shot at life. One man's problem became another person's dream, right? And if you're in the family recovery process right now, don't give up, because you are right now where at some point a previous version of you dreamed you would be. If your kid is clean and sober or trying to get clean and sober, this version of your life at some point when your kid was hopeless, when you were hopeless, when they were out in the streets, you didn't know what the hell they were doing, you were just terrified. This version, the person watching me right now, this version of your life was a dream to you one day. Don't give up on it. Don't give up on it, and just see what happens. Just see what happens. You know, it's there's a lot of truth to that statement when it comes to problems. The next one is to refocus on your task. It says concentration is the secret of strength in politics, war, trade, sports, in short, all management of human affairs. No problem can sustain the assault of sustained thinking. I like that. No problem can sustain the assault of sustained thinking. You know, whenever we get emotional, we stop thinking. We're just like, oh my gosh, no good thoughts are coming out. When you're not emotional, sit down and refocus on the problem. Talk to a few people and just get your zoom back. Get your focus back. Get some clarity back. Make it simple. If there's 10 things going on in your mind, focus on one or two things. I mean, that's what they always tell us to do, right? They tell us to just focus on one point. Because when you focus on 10, you focus on none. And refocusing is really, really important when it comes to solving problems. Whenever I see someone dealing with a problem, one of the first things I always notice is the fact that they're just not focused, or they're focused on the wrong thing. You want to focus on what? I know Jim will agree on this one. You want to focus on the solution. You can talk about the problem. It's okay to talk about the problem. Sometimes we need to vent. We need to express ourselves. We need to have that little outlet. But if you don't focus on the solution, then you're just wasting time. You're just making your problem even more unmanageable, right? The next one that we have here, number 4, is to rethink your strategy. If you have been going about your problem the same way for weeks, months, years, decades, and it is still the same damn problem in your life, your strategy sucks. I just really wanted to say that. Sometimes our strategy in life sucks, and that's okay to own that. It's okay to accept that. It's okay to laugh at yourself, to say, hey, this guy's got a point. If my problem isn't getting any better, maybe my strategy just sucks. Maybe the way I'm going about this thing just sucks. I'm a basketball coach, right? So we do all this game planning. We do all these, before the game walkthroughs, and we scout. We do all that kind of stuff. And then we go at halftime, and we're just getting our asses kicked, right? We're losing the game really bad. You walk in there, and if you don't have an ego and you don't want to blame a bunch of kids for why the game plan's not working, you go in there and say, hey, as a coaching staff, we screwed up. We had the wrong strategy going into this game. So if that's your case, if you realize that you have the wrong strategy going into this recovery stuff, there's nothing wrong with making halftime adjustments. Like, look at your strategy and say, hey, we got to make some changes. I got to make some changes. What are those changes going to be? There's nothing wrong with halftime adjustments as long as you own the fact that your strategy isn't working. Some people want to hold on to the wrong strategy forever because they got ego and they got pride, and they sometimes don't even know, actually. So sometimes people hold on to the wrong strategy as a byproduct of uncertainty or not knowing. And yeah, rethinking your strategy is huge. And I know a lot of you have, by the way, that are watching this. And the next one says, just return to the work. If you have a problem, do what you can, where you can with what you have. Return to the work, we call it just get into action. Get into action. Here's a kind of a longer quote, but I want to read it to you. It says, just do the work and solve it quickly. Solve it right or wrong. If you solve it wrong, which some of us do sometimes, it will come back and slap you in the face. Then you have the opportunity to solve it right. However, lying dead in the water and doing nothing is a comfortable alternative because it is without risk, but it is absolutely fatal way to manage the recovery process. So just keep swimming, in the words of Finding Nemo and Dory. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. When you have a problem in life, do what you have to do to solve it with sustained thinking, with asking for help, with refocusing, with creating a new strategy, with being able to manage your emotions. And if you don't do it right, it's going to come slap you in the face. You've experienced that before. But then it gives you an opportunity, a problem to move forward, to figure out a new way of embracing it, of dealing with it. And if you don't, and you just kind of stagnate and just let it be, you could do it. That's how days go by, weeks go by, months go by, years go by, decades go by, and you're in the same situation. However, it's fatal for the recovery process. In the terms of addiction, it could be fatal in your loved one's life, but it's also fatal in the form of like spirituality in your soul and your mind and your spirit. You know, those things are valuable. If you're watching this and your spirit has been destroyed because of addiction, maybe it's time to kind of look at change your strategy. You know, maybe it's time to give some life back into yourself. So that's what I had for the problem solving stuff. If there's any takeaways that you had from this talk, feel free to write them in the comments and I'll put them up on the screen and talk about them. And if there's any topics, you know, I have a few more minutes here that you would like to have me cover following weeks, I will bring some people back and do the split screen with them in the upcoming weeks. I just kind of missed lecturing and I wanted to hear myself talk a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. I was just really excited about this talk and I wanted to just have the opportunity to reconnect with you again. This stuff means something to me. You know, this family education support stuff means something to me because I know it makes an impact in people's lives. And if there are any topics, any takeaways that you had from this talk, feel free to type your response in the chat thing. I'll be here for another minute or two. And if not, that's okay. I will be back same place, same time next week. Looking forward to another wonderful family education support. And also, we're celebrating our anniversary at Buckeye Recovery Network on Wednesday. And I'm going to go ahead and pass out this thing to our staff and get these staff interviews lined up again. We were supposed to start doing them 3 weeks ago, but I had to postpone it for some personal reasons. And what we're going to do there is every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you don't have to watch it live, but that's when it's going to be live. There's going to be a 15-minute interview with myself and one of our staff members at Buckeye Recovery Network. You know, there's about 30 of us. So it's going to be a fun process. Each week, you're going to get to know a family member. You're going to get to know you're going to get to know a staff member, a clinician, support staff, someone in upper management, someone in leadership, someone in ownership. And it's going to be every Wednesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And it'll be recorded on our Facebook page. And it's going to be wonderful for you to see the staff that we have at Buckeye Recovery Network, because I'm telling you, you know, I've traveled this whole country, gone to almost most treatment centers and stuff like that. And I'll put our staff against any staff. And we all definitely believe in the possibility of human transformation. Like I said, I made this talk till 2 a.m. last night, so I'm a little tired. But all that being said, love and appreciate you guys. Thank you for the kind words on the side. You know, there's some really good. And this, by the way, this right here, I mean, Dan's been talking a few things here. He said the respond, do not react. It's been life-changing advice. And that means something. You know, when someone says something that I've shared here, you know, that changes their life. And I truly believe that, because what he's telling me is that they used to react all the time. And it had such a negative impact on their life by reacting, because that's draining. When you're constantly reacting based on your emotions, that's draining. But when you're actually able to take in something that happened, even something really, really triggering, like a relapse or, you know, those kind of stuff, and say, you know what, I am going to take a step back. I'm going to allow my emotions to come down. I'm going to be able to be more objective, talk to a few people, talk to my spouse, talk to my friends, talk to my family, sit with myself. And once my emotions come down, I'm going to go respond to the crisis, that's life-changing. That's gold right there. So I'm happy, and I've learned how to do the same, by the way. And thank you everyone else too. It's Eileen, I appreciate you. You've been here from the beginning. I really do appreciate your feedback. St. John, I owe you guys a phone call. Hopefully tomorrow we'll make that happen. Teresa, helpful as always. You're very, very welcome. Julian, amazing developments today. Appreciate you. You got it, man. Beta, love and appreciate you also. Jackie, thank you for a wonderful lesson. I really enjoyed it and it helped me understand some of my weaknesses. And that's it. It takes a lot of, say bigness, but it's a humility to say, hey, I have weaknesses as a family member, and it helped me realize some of those. So, this is why we do it. You're welcome back, and feel free to share these, by the way, with anyone you want. It's not like some proprietary information. It's the stuff I teach is such common sense, man. There's a really cool book that says, I learned everything I needed to learn in life in kindergarten. Actually, Google it. It's a best-selling book, and it's so basic. It's like all of these life lessons that we're always trying to learn in personal development and growth and this and that. We all know them. They're all inside. They're all in here. They're all in here. But when we get emotionally triggered and we lose sight of that stuff, we just first thing out the door is that common knowledge that we all have. And my thing is hopefully able to bring that to your attention. And Mr. Curtis, appreciate you. Eye-opening. I'm glad I was able to do that. So that's it's just wonderful, man. I look forward to this every week. Love and appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful weekend. I will be back next Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And the following week after that, also every Wednesday, we have our staff spotlights, which I think you're going to get a lot of value out of. Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Have a good one, everyone. Take care.